Good morning, Holy Cross family, and welcome to today's presentation of the 2021 Senior Project. I'm Mrs. Mills from the College Counseling Office, and I also have the pleasure of being the coordinator of the Senior Project program at Holy Cross. For those viewing today, especially our freshmen and our sophomores, this might be the first time you are hearing about the Senior Project. So I am very excited to have the time today to share with you just a little about the Signature program, now in its 48th year. The Senior Project is advertised as a program where seniors take the first real step, exploring a career or their life interests. But it is so much more. It is a test of life skills, and it is an experience where one begins to learn that the business world outside these doors of Holy Cross operate on a different set of principles in which our seniors are used to and in which they need to conform. The Senior Project is truly transformative, and it is the perfect way to transition out of these Holy Cross halls and into the seniors' future. Over the years, I've come to view the Senior Project as a transition period when our graduating class moves from being empowered girls to empowered women. This year, throw in a pandemic, and the thought of completing a Senior Project seemed insurmountable. Starting this process last November, the how and the where questions were abundant. But if you are truly a part of the thread that makes Holy Cross who we are, you know that we welcome a good challenge. And we did, successfully. Our seniors worked hard, harder than in the past years, often reaching out to 3 or 4 businesses before capturing their Senior Project site. But necessity is the mother of invention, and this year the pandemic allowed opportunities we just may not have experienced before. This year, we broadened our normal parameters of completing the Senior Project only in the DMV to include the possibility of virtual opportunities across the country. And our seniors took advantage of this. Why, this year we entertained virtual placements in companies and businesses in Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, Denver, Colorado, North Carolina, New York City, Houston, Texas, and Los Angeles, California. This year, our ladies shadowed at some amazing locations, like the World Bank, Montgomery County Circuit Court, Cirrus MD, a cutting-edge telehealth company, and Condé Nast, a global mass media company. Why, we even had a senior become a trained member of the Maryland Medical Reserve Corps just so that she could gain experience in the health field. We had careers explored in architecture, economics, mass media, fashion design, nonprofit organizations, STEM careers, and even elementary education, just to name a few. There is a reason this program is a graduation requirement. How were these projects completed in a pandemic? Well, interestingly enough, pretty evenly. 33% were held in person, 34% were done in a hybrid situation, and 33% were totally virtual. I am delighted to have some seniors share their wonderful experiences with you today. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the presentations.
Hi everyone, my name is Bianca David, and I'm here to tell you why I chose my senior project at Generational Health Center. So, where and why did I choose my senior project location? I originally reached out to a Holy Cross alumni, and she connected me with one of her sorority sisters, who fortunately ran a private practice in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. Into the picture to the right, you can see the Generational Health Center. I was thrilled with this option because I intend to pursue medicine and become a physician when I am older. Also, because of COVID-19 and the time of the decision, I wanted to make sure that I was safe outside of a hospital. So the person who ran this private practice and was my senior project sponsor was amazing Dr. Yolanda Hancock to the right. She's a pediatrician as well as an obesity specialist. She worked at Children's Hospital before owning her own practice. The majority of children came in on the weekends, so it was hard to sit in on those meetings, but I was able to sit on many appointments for weight management. Dr. Hancock is also a professor at George Washington University and an activist who is currently working on passing the Nutrition Equity Act, which I will talk about later. So my daily duties range between three things: scut work, patient interaction, and important meetings. With every job comes with what is known as scut work. For this particular internship, it was manually entering lab work data into the system or making sure everyone has the correct information in their charts. The benefit of this was that I was able to pick up knowledge from the scut work, such as understanding what a normal range in different areas, like the TSH or lipid panels, were. If a patient was in the high range of a certain area, she would explain why she was testing for it and a diagnosis for the patient. Scut work was a mutually beneficial process because I was learning what I was putting in. Dr. Hancock also had many important meetings that I was able to attend. This ranged from her being on the radio to talk about the new mask mandate, or to be on a news channel to talk about kids ages 12 to 15 receiving the Pfizer vaccine, or anything related to the Nutrition Equity Act. Most importantly was sitting in on appointments with patients who typically were there to lose weight. As I said earlier, she also sees children, but they come in on weekends. The picture on the right was my workspace, and what you see on the desktop screen is the main database called Cario. This is where patients schedule their appointments, but it also contains all their chart information. There is a process in which a person successfully uses Dr. Hancock's services. The first appointment is where Dr. Hancock asks the patient many questions, such as why do you want to lose weight, to what do you would like to eat, and so on. This helps Dr. Hancock know how to help the patient. Patients also get their metabolic rate calculated that first meeting through the RMR machine, which stands for resting metabolic rate. It tells you how fast your metabolism is while resting. It also tells you how many calories you typically burn throughout the day. It also calculates how many calories you need to consume daily to gain, maintain, or lose weight. I actually was able to try out the RMR, and I must admit it is not the most appealing look, but it was definitely useful. Next, after the patient completes the RMR, we have a sense of how many calories they should consume based off their goals. On the bottom left, you will see where the system breaks down the nutrition percentages for each day. The percentages are split between protein, carbs, and fat. On the right, you will see what the patient sees when they receive their meal plan. I spent the majority of the second week making sample meal plans for different calorie amounts such as 1200, 1400, 1600, and 1800 calories. It definitely was a little tedious since you have to enter the foods manually, and you have to be really creative when thinking about what people actually want to eat each day, while also keeping in mind the percentages. It took me maybe 3 hours to complete one basic meal plan for 12,000 calories. Dr. Hancock is able to give her patients their meal plans with the different dietary restrictions like allergies, stuff like that, for about 3 weeks of meal planning in an hour. She's able to return it to them in an hour, which is pretty amazing. So once the patient follows the meal plan for about a week or two, they come back for a follow-up visit. During this visit, we make sure that the patient is sticking to their goal as best as possible and make any changes necessary to their meal plan, to their plan in general. We also take the patient's blood pressure and weight, and by the second week, I was able to take the blood pressure and patient's weight myself, which was pretty exciting. Since Dr. Hancock is a physician, if she sees anything out of the ordinary, she will make sure to check up on it and make sure everything is kosher. In the picture on the right, I was able to check the patient's heartbeat after she presented with a fast heart rate. Dr. Hancock checked it first, of course, since I'm not a licensed physician, I wouldn't know what a fast heart rate sounds like. But these follow-ups continue until the patient has met their goal. Next is the Nutrition Equity Act that I've been talking about recently. The following paragraph I took from the DC line that best explains what this act is about. It is the legislation increases access to nutritious foods for families at district shelters and transitional housing facilities and promotes healthier beverage options by repealing the current existing 8% sales tax on sugary drinks and instead imposing an excise tax of 1.5 cents per ounce on the distribution of sugary drinks in the district. Basically, how Dr. Hancock described it was this act is intended to encourage people to choose a healthier choice, such as water. This is similar along the lines of giving people who don't wear their seatbelt a ticket and forces you to choose what's best for you. So that was the senior project aspect of it. Now to talk about my future plans. My plans for the future is to attend Virginia Tech and receive a Bachelor's of Science in Biology on the pre-med track. What I learned from the senior project and may potentially pursue in college is a minor in business and Spanish, since they both seem to be useful skills in the office. Lastly, I plan to attend medical school. So you might be wondering why you're sitting in a classroom on your last day of school being forced to hear about me talk about my senior project. Well, the senior project has plenty of advantages if you take it seriously. First off, it helps you determine if the path you believe is fitting for you really is the right one. I learned that I really do enjoy working with patients and certainly enjoy the medical aspect of STEM. This helps solidify or eliminate choices before you get to college. Next, it gives you an advantage over any high schooler in our area that doesn't do a senior project like internship. You have this experience under your belt that can be used on resumes to get a job or an internship locally. Last, it helps with applications and resumes down in the future. For example, I plan to apply to med school, and I already have the doctor's office experience that many med schools are looking for in an applicant. This can apply to you in 4 years when you're applying to med, law, and or graduate school or job. They will see that you had an important internship at the ripe age of 17 or 18. I hope you take the senior project seriously because there's so much to gain from it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Claire Striegel, and for my senior project, I worked at Flanagan Architects, an architecture firm in Bethesda, Maryland, and I was able to get into contact with Mr. Flanagan, the owner, because he not only has 2 daughters who went to Holy Cross, but he also was in architecture school with my dad. At Flanagan Architects, they do a mix of commercial work, including spas, retail, car dealerships, schools, and much more. But what I was really interested in was the residential side of their work. They do a lot of custom homes as well as renovations and additions like this before and after. One of the most important things I learned during my internship was all the different phases each project goes through. Whether a project is 1 month long or 2 years long, it has to go through all these different phases. And while I didn't see one project go through each one of these, I saw a lot of different projects in a lot of different stages. The first step is marketing, and for this I went to a house with Mr. Flanagan where the owners called and weren't quite sure if they wanted to do an addition or completely renovate their house or what they would want done yet. So we went and discussed all the different options, what the process would look like, the price, and afterwards Mr. Flanagan wrote up a proposal. The next step is pre-design, and this happens after the owners know for sure they want something done or a floor plan drawn up. So Mr. Flanagan or any of his architects go to the house, and I was lucky enough to go with them to measure the entire house so they could draw a floor plan of the existing house and site. To get a more in-depth look into this stage, I also measured the entire office and drew up my own floor plan of the office, which you can see on this slide. The next phase is schematic design, which is more so like a rough draft of what the layout would be of a house or space. It isn't exact dimensions, but more so what fits in what space and what the clients would like in that space. Mr. Flanagan always shows 3 different schematic designs to his clients so he can get a better idea of what they want. To get another in-depth look into schematic design, Mr. Flanagan actually gave me an assignment where he gave me just the floor plan of an existing building, told me to imagine all the walls were torn down, and then gave me certain things I had to fit in the space, such as a lunchroom, 4 offices, a conference room, and I had to come up with my own schematic design that would fit those things in that space. After schematic design, the next step is design development, which is when there is a set floor plan and dimensions so they can then turn into construction documents. The construction documents include every detail, material, and step needed for the contractor to complete the design. For this stage, I was not only able to see architects draw up construction documents, but also look through several sets of them. I got to see this next stage in action when I went to a meeting at Mercy about building a new classroom. 3 contractors came to the meeting, were given a tour of the space, shown the drawings of what should be done, and later they will come back with a bid on how much they think it will cost and what their timeline is. The last step, and my personal favorite, is construction administration. I was able to see several houses and different projects under construction during my internship. Some of them had just begun or were completely torn apart or nearly finished, and it was very cool to see them all in different stages. During this step, there is a punch list done at the very end, which means the architects go through and see if there's any final adjustments or things to change or add, and also payment is being done through this entire process as certain projects are completed within the overall project. I honestly had a more rewarding senior project experience than I ever expected. I am an architecture major, so it was very interesting to learn more about my major and get excited for college. I really learned the ins and outs of each stage of architecture, got to see so many projects in person, and really learned about the business side of architecture since Mr. Flanagan owns his own business, which I really didn't know anything about beforehand. My advice to the underclasswomen that will be doing a senior project in the future is to really spend the time to find a good senior project site, and don't be afraid to reach out and ask a lot of people, because if you find a site you really love, it'll be a great 2 weeks instead of something you dread. And don't get discouraged if it's not exactly what you expected, especially the first few days. It often takes time to get into a little bit of a rhythm before you really know what you're doing. And remember, you'll get out what you put into it. If you ask a lot of questions and stay engaged, it'll be a lot of fun, but if you kind of sit back and don't participate that much, it might be a little boring. And also stay positive and keep an open mind. Even if it's not necessarily what you wanted to do initially, you could end up loving it.
Hello, my name is Faith Kelly, and I did my project at Washington Anxiety Center. Why did I choose this site? Well, I chose this site for a couple of reasons. The first is that I wanted to know what having a job as a psychologist would be like, since I do want to work in the field. Second, Dr. Johanna Kaplan, my senior project sponsor, spoke at AHC about her practice and what she does as a clinical psychologist and how she treats different anxiety disorders. And here is a page of their website. Next, what did I do? 2 things that I did and would like to highlight are writing summaries on videos that I watched and articles that I read, and I also scanned papers. Each day, I was given either 5 or 3 videos to watch, or 1 or 3 articles to read. After that, I would have to write a 1-page or 2-page summary on what I had just read or watched. One thing I did on site was scan files. In a private practice, job, or any workplace, you will most likely have to scan files. When I had to meet on site with the admin at Washington Anxiety Center, Ms. Tia Tyndall, she had given me many files to scan, and then I had to delete them and then put them back into a folder that then needed to be shredded afterwards for confidentiality reasons, of course. My strengths. The first strength that I came in with was the knowledge that I had already had on psychology because I took an AP psychology class second semester. All of the one-page and two-page summaries that I wrote were easy to write because they were about things that I recently learned in AP Psych, and they're fresh on my brain, so of course I remember them. The second strength is me being a fast learner. I never scanned papers before or even knew how, but when Tia Tendall taught me how, even though it's not hard at all, like at all, I picked it up very quickly and started scanning papers from there. Now, scanning files is also in my brain and easy to remember. My weaknesses. On the first week of senior project, there was a video that I had to watch, and it didn't make any sense to me because it only talked about what it takes to become a clinical psychologist. Now, I came in here wanting to do counseling psychology. That was my original plan, my original goal, my original dream. However, I didn't think counseling psychology took that amount of work as a clinical psychologist. So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, well, why am I watching this video if it has nothing to do with counseling psychology? And Dr. Kaplan explains to me that the steps it takes to become a clinical psychologist is the same as it takes to become a counseling psychologist, practically the same, but not all the way. So from there, I understood and I was corrected. Okay, my second weakness is forgetfulness. Because on the first week of senior project, I forgot that I had meetings with Dr. Kaplan on Wednesdays. Even though I made it to the first meeting because I called her back, if it wasn't for her calling me, I would have never remembered, and that is not okay. The second week, I forgot that I was supposed to join staff meetings on Tuesdays. After that second mistake, I started to write down the upcoming meetings or anything that I had in my reminders app. So if you need help writing or remembering something, write it down in your reminders app. The person I learned most from. I learned most from Dr. Kaplan, Dr. Joanna Kaplan, the director of Washington Anxiety Center and my senior project sponsor. First, she made an impact on me by teaching me about finance and how much specific psychologists make a year, and to not only think about how much you love something, but to think about the longevity of the future job you want and how much it will cost you financially. Secondly, she did not give up on college. She made it through grad school, she passed all of her exams, she wrote a dissertation, and began her own private practice. Third, she gave me professional advice for future references on how to not act and how to act when I get an actual job. Fourth, she's an actual lifesaver. Because of her job, and without her, people with disorders would either be suffering and needing help. Fifth, her patience, kindness, hard work, being a working mom, and a clinical psychologist is what inspired me the most. 3 ways my senior project influenced my major in college. Number 1, the research. Number 2, the time. And number 3, the experience. I developed an interest in psychology because I have ADHD and I wanted to know why my brain and behavior is different because of this specific disorder. I was able to collect more research statistics and learn about treatments for ADHD before I could even study it in college. So I probably know more about ADHD than first-year psychology students because of senior project. 3 weeks is a sufficient amount of time to make a decision about what you want to be in the future. Lastly, the experience is most important because not only was I able to get a head start in what a life of psychologist is like, but I learned many intriguing things, my questions were answered, and I developed an interest in clinical psychology and different therapies I would like to perform in the future. The purpose of Senior Project. To the juniors, Senior Project is constructed to help you figure out what you really want to focus on in college, but for future references, it's helping you decide your career choice. So really put your all into it and keep an open mind to new ideas or changes in your dream career. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Marina Schlegel and today I'm going to be talking to you about my senior project. So I decided to do my senior project at the FDA with Dr. Nandini Dharaswamy because I wanted to get a better look of what kind of careers biomedical engineers can go into after college, since that's what I plan on studying my next 4 years at NC State. And of course, I also wanted to get a better understanding of how labs work and be able to do some labs in the FDA's many labs. So a little bit more about who I worked with. So I worked with Dr. Nandini, and she is the head biomedical engineer of the cardiovascular lab in OCEL at the FDA. And OCEL just stands for the specific office that she's a part of, which in our case is the Office of Science and Engineering Labs. She primarily works in the research wing where testing on medical devices is done to determine if the devices are safe to be used, which is what we were doing at my time at the FDA, but we'll get into that in a little bit. And in the past, she has created and tested artificial heart valves and worked in designing new guide wires used in surgeries. And guide wires are little, thin, tiny wires that are used to kind of find your way through the body in a non-invasive way in surgery, and they're used to either place devices, just get a look around to find and see what the problem is, or even sometimes suture up things, really anything. So next we have one of the first designs of one of the artificial heart valves that they worked on. So on the left is just an overhead view of it, and it has one circular flap that opens and closes, and on the right you can see how that flap does open. So what they found with this specific valve was that because of the way that it opens, as you can see, there isn't straight blood flow, like there isn't a straight path for the blood to flow through, which was a problem. So they moved on to create the next model, which, as you can see, has two folds that open and close, and this allowed for more linear blood flow when the heart was trying to pump and contract so that blood can be pumped throughout your body. And nowadays we use something that looks more like this, which is actually made of 3 different flaps that open and close on the heart valve, and they are made of animal tissue, which is why it's preserved in this glass ball at the moment. And they found that this had the best blood flow and was less foreign to the body in a way. The animal tissue is fairly similar to the tissue on our hearts. And so next is pictures of, this is what they use to actually test those heart valves. This is a simulation for the actual contractions and pressure in your heart. The valve is placed onto this, and this simulates the contractions of your heart's left ventricle when your heart is beating to pump blood throughout your body. And they were using this to test all the artificial heart valves that were being manufactured at the FDA. So what I worked on in OCEL was, so we did multiple rounds of testing in the lab on specifically abdominal bags used to collect cancerous fibrotic tissue in the abdomen. What these bags were used for was they were placed inside the patient, and they would take the tissue and place it into the bag so that when pulling it out of the patient, pieces of tissue aren't flying everywhere in the body. And this is really important because at this point, the doctor does not know whether this tissue is cancerous or not, which is why you don't want little pieces of it floating throughout the rest of your body and possibly causing cancer to spread elsewhere where it wasn't before. So the FDA was working to find a standard way of testing for holes in these bags before they got sent out to hospitals. We were conducting an experiment on the bags in which we tested the electrical resistance between 2 electrodes. So the bag was placed into a saline solution, and one electrode was placed inside the bag of water, and one was placed on the outside of the bag of water. And we would test the electrical current between the two to determine whether there was holes in the bag or not. Because a lot of these holes are too small for the visible eye to see, and it's too time consuming to have someone look through even high resolution photos or on a microscope to look for these holes. It's too time consuming. So we're trying to find a way and method to test for holes and in a timely manner and accurate manner. And so this is a picture of our lab setup. On the right, you can see the red wire is actually attached to one electrode, which sits inside of the bag. and the black wire leads to the electrode outside of the bag, both in the water. And on the right, you can see just a straight on view of our setup. You can see that the bag is in the water, and you can see the one electrode coming through the bag. And so what we were looking for basically was if there was a hole in the bag, which the company drills themselves and circles it, tells us where it is so we know and everything, because this is more just for testing, then we would see a drop in the resistance. But if there were no holes in the bag and everything was fine, then the resistance would increase and shoot up a lot. And so what our main reasoning for doing this was to see if it was able to detect holes as small as 1 micron, which is very small, not visible to the human eye. I looked at it under a microscope, and it is tiny, a lot tinier than anyone would think. And this specific test method isn't necessarily going to work for holes of that size, but it's getting somewhere. We're able to detect holes above 2 microns. But yeah, we tested a bunch of different bags with different sized holes, different companies, different materials they were made out of, and we got to analyze the data, and it was honestly really cool. I learned a lot, not only about this project, but about other projects and just about the labs in general, really. So thank you.
Spare Clip by Abby Garris. What is Spare Club about? Spare Club is a fitness place where anyone can work out. You can do group classes or take a variety classes. They help you get in shape. I did for my project. My project was to make karate workout videos for Spare Club. My job was to show karate moves while Masasazi talk to Masasazi to karate from a wheelchair. He shows karate one way, and I shows it the other way. Steps taken. Each day I had to practice karate moves. Step taken. I thought to make iMovies. I saw people each move. When I would meet each my sensei in a record karate classes.
Hi, I'm Abby. I am a black belt. Welcome to Spare Club.
And I'm Jeremy. I am a black belt in the martial art of Shorei Goju-Ryu. Today we're going to demonstrate different karate techniques. Abby is going to demonstrate some kicks and stances. I am in a wheelchair due to a car accident, so I will be demonstrating strikes while she is demonstrating the kicks. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and bow out of respect to start, and we're just going to look down. We're not going to look at each other. If we were going to actually spar, when we would bow, we would actually maintain eye contact. So now Abby's going to demonstrate a couple stances before we get started. So Abby, if you would go ahead and demonstrate that side stance where Abby's going to bend at both knees. She's got her feet more of about 2 shoulder widths apart and is able to bend into that deep 50-50 weight on both legs stance. And then Abby, do you want to demonstrate the wide back stance where she'll have her back leg bent and she'll have about 60% of her weight over her back foot, while about 40% of her weight is on her front leg. All right, thank you, Abby. That looks great. Do you want to move back into your get ready stance? Okay, Abby's going to move into her get ready stance. I'm going to back up a bit And then Abby's going to step into a forward stance and she's going to demonstrate a front snap kick. And when she does her kick, she's going to lift up and kick with her back leg or front leg. And she's really intending to kick forward and hit with the balls of the feet, not the toes, but the balls of the feet. So I'm going to back up. I'm going to demonstrate kicks punches. Abby is going to demonstrate the kicks, the front snap kick. So here we go. And I'm going to count in English. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, thank you, Abby. And now Abby's going to demonstrate another kick. This is the side kick. And so with this kick, Abby's going to bring her leg up and kick out to the side. 1. And I'm going to go ahead and back up again and we will demonstrate. Hang on a moment. Let me adjust this a little bit. There we go. Okay. All right. Abby, if you're ready, you want to go ahead and demonstrate that side kick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There you go. 8, 9, 10. Very good. Thank you, Abby. So Abby has now demonstrated several different techniques, both today and in some previous recordings. And Abby's now going to show how to combine those techniques together with what's called a combination. So Abby, if you want to go ahead and get into that get ready stance, and Abby's going to show how to combine the stances, the blocks, the kicks, and strikes that we've worked on. Not all of them, but she's going to demonstrate how they go together. Hajime.
Ready stance. Forward stance. Forward punch. Low block. Front kick.
Thank you very much, Abby. That was fantastic. I would say we bow to each other if we are done demonstrating for the day.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophia and I'll be talking about my senior project at PetVax Animal Hospital. So just a little information about PetVax is that they're located in Rockville, as you can see, and there are 3 veterinarians on staff, Dr. Wiley, Dr. Hudgens, and Dr. Jacob. The services they offer, they have your typical exams, vaccines, dentals, minor and major surgeries, house calls, and boarding. One unique service that they perform is laser therapy and acupuncture, which are 2 services I didn't know of prior to my project. Also, they used to have mobile services, but due to COVID, those aren't happening currently. And since we're speaking about PetVax, we can't forget the on-staff house cats. As pictured, we have Kelsey, Butters, and Rose. Kelsey and Rose mostly hang out in the front lobby or in the pharmacy, and Butters stays in the back where the surgeries take place. So a typical day will start out with a morning meeting to get everyone on the same page, go over what everyone's duties are for the day, updates on boarders if there are any, and if there are any surgeries that day, a brief summary on what the patient is coming in for and about drop-off time. After the morning meeting, the vet techs get their room ready by making sure they have all the tools they need and everything is in place. Appointments start at 9, and because of COVID, appointments are different. The owners park next to the curb in front of the clinic and call the front desk to let them know they have arrived for their appointment. Then a vet tech will go out and get the patient and bring them in to the exam room. The tech gets the patient's weight, temperature, pulse, and respiratory numbers. Then the tech calls the owner from inside and goes over why the patient came in that day and if there's any other concerns. If the doctor is needed, then one of them will come in and assess the patient and call the owner to talk with them and go over what she found in the next steps and potential medications. After the potential medications are filled and if any vaccines are administered, a tech takes the patient back to the owner. All while this is happening, the exam room is being cleaned before the next pet comes in. Now, I only worked for the morning half, so I didn't get to see how the afternoon shift went, but I'd assume it's somewhat similar to the morning shift. During my 2 weeks, I was also able to observe 4 dental exams and 2 extractions. The process of a dental exam starts with sedation. If the patient doesn't have up-to-date blood work, blood will be drawn to test to make sure the patient has no underlying health conditions that could be an issue with the anesthesia, which they do majority of the testing in-house, but the grade of the blood work panel they send to the lab to test. Then a catheter is placed so that the anesthesia can enter the bloodstream quicker. At this point, the patient is somewhat sleepy but not fully under anesthesia. The patient is then put on the table to be given anesthesia and then intubated. The dental starts with the cleaning and then x-rays, and then the doctor assesses the teeth to see if any extractions are needed, and then those will take place. Then the dental ends with the polishing of the patient's teeth. For the removal of a skin tag, the doctor uses a radio wave pen that uses radio frequencies to successfully remove the skin tag without having to make any incisions or need stitches after the procedure is done, which, like I said earlier, is something I've never heard of or seen before. Another thing I didn't know about was laser therapy and acupuncture. Laser therapy is done to help with the healing process and to reduce inflammation, and acupuncture works similarly to how it does in humans. On my last day, a dog came in with a mass on his toe, which was caused by a blood disease that acts similarly like cancer, so his 2 middle toes needed to be amputated. It was a really interesting experience, and I did get to see majority of the procedure, but towards the end I ended up getting a little dizzy and had to step out the room, but other than that I was fine. I'm not really sure what caused me to be dizzy because I was fine for the whole thing up until the end, but what can you do? It was probably because I'd never seen something like that and the shock had settled in or something. Lastly, I got to help with x-rays. They're similar to when we get x-rays, except for the patient is placed on an x-ray table, and depending on the patient, sedation may occur. If the patient doesn't squirm and stays still, then it's not needed. But since 2 techs have to hold the patient down, my job was to put specific padding that is the same as the x-ray lead aprons that people wear on their hands to make sure that their hands aren't affected by the x-rays. Well, I had a great experience working at PetVax. I learned a lot of new things I didn't know before, met wonderful and kind people who took the time to explain different aspects of their job and just overall work in the field. All in all, this experience has made me even more excited about the future and is pushing me to continue to pursue my goal of becoming a veterinarian, and I would like to thank everyone at PetVax for this opportunity. For the rising seniors, my advice to you all is to use the senior projects as an opportunity to really see if what you think of majoring in or a career path is really what you want. Now, I know some of you might not know what you want to major in, and that's okay. You still have time to think about that. And I know that senior project might seem like this big, scary event that will take place in the near future, but don't worry. You have people who will be there to support you on the way. The best thing you can do to help yourself when you first start to work is to have an open mind, and don't be afraid to ask questions if you have them. Make senior projects helpful for you and your decision about your future. Try to get the most out of your project, and remember that there's no one right way to achieve your goals. There are many different paths that can lead you to the same goal. And I would like to thank everyone for your time and for listening to me talk about my senior project. Thanks again.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Tartaglia, and I plan on majoring in engineering with a focus on business and project management in college. So for my senior project, I decided to work with Greg Parchment, who is Alums Riley and Jade Parchment's father, and he also helped to start the robotics team here at Holy Cross. His company, Buchanan and Edwards, and their subsidiary ValBoost, focus on information technology and work with clients such as the State Department to help them with their networks, their data management, and their cybersecurity. I chose this site because they were very flexible and helped to plan tasks around what I was interested in. I also ended up doing the project with 2 of my friends who were interested in similar things, and that definitely made the experience even more fun. We were super lucky to be mostly in person with a few days virtual, and we got to go into their office, which is a really nice space in downtown Arlington that gave us the chance to experience a business professional environment. We were involved in a variety of projects during our time there, with a big focus on learning how to use Office 365 apps more efficiently. We used Microsoft Visio and Power BI and Excel to create dynamic floor plans and network diagrams for both the office and 19th Street Baptist Church, which is one of the nonprofits that Buchanan and Edwards volunteers their time with. The church was attacked a little while ago using ransomware software, which is similar to the recent pipeline hack. So Buchanan and Edwards has been helping them to bolster their cybersecurity and their network. And I was actually able to go on Microsoft Teams calls earlier in the year to see what they were working on, which was really cool. We're also helping to research and present different options for the church for their phone plans, and we're using what we've learned about Office 365 and Microsoft to teach them and demo for them how they can use that for their own systems. These are just some pictures from the church from when we went to go help them do their technology inventory and then create the diagrams and floor plans for them. This is just kind of a basic sketch of what we would then create in the Microsoft apps to make it look a little bit cleaner and easier to read for the church. And then these are examples of some of the more detailed and professional diagrams that we would make using the Microsoft Visio and Power BI, which are linked to dynamic Excel spreadsheets. Like I said, they've been super flexible and wanting to allow me to do things that I'm interested in, so I was able to be a part of the planning process on most of these tasks, so I could see how they use Microsoft Planner and other applications to do that kind of thing. They're even helping me to get a certification in a project planning course and framework that will definitely help to distinguish me from others in my area of interest. Additionally, because I'm now affiliated with Buchanan and Edwards, I'm able to get my government clearance, which they're helping me go through the process of, and that will definitely help me to find internships and jobs in college and in my career. This is what Microsoft Planner looks like, and a lot of companies use this for their project management, so becoming proficient in this is something that will definitely help me in my future career. This other diagram is an example of the a little bit higher up level planning software that I might take the course in and get my certification for, and that's something that a lot of companies and even some government services are transitioning over for project planning. My favorite part about this project was that we were able to experience a business and office environment. We were constantly learning not only about how to use applications and software, but how businesses like Buchanan and Edwards operate. They explained to us the history of the company, and we got to learn and see firsthand how they operate on a day-to-day basis. We also got to meet and expand our networks with some really cool people. Like our main sponsor Kamal here, they were always looking to teach us new things and tell us about their experiences. They even brought in a guest speaker who works with their company, and she gave us some advice about college, the tech industry, our paths, and especially about what it's like to be a woman in STEM. Overall, I really enjoyed my experience on Senior Project at Buchanan and Edwards, and I definitely recommend this site to anyone who is interested in IT, computer science, or project management.
Hi everyone, my name is Lynn Clow, and this is my senior project presentation. For my senior project, I did clinical shadowing. So I did both online and in-person clinical shadowing where I followed a doctor around to see how they went about their day and the different procedures that they would perform. So if I can get that to work. I think the first question I should tackle is, what is the senior project? Last year we did not have the senior project, so the sophomores might be a bit confused, and freshmen have never seen this before. So the senior project is an opportunity at the end of your senior year to go out and find an internship, particularly in a field where you want to go into in the future, just to kind of explore and see if you would like it or not. And for me, I chose going into the medical field because I want to pursue medicine in the future and eventually go to med school. So on the left, I have me in my in-person shadowing in my scrubs, which I'm still very excited about. And on the right is me doing online clinical shadowing. So what are the HEAL clinical hours? The HEAL clinical hours were online courses led and taught live by a fifth-year medical student paired with an actual doctor who was performing surgeries or procedures or just a everyday patient checkup. And I paired this with the med school coaches online clinical hours, which basically do the same thing, except I was able to see different specialties specifically, such as pediatrics, emergency trauma and medicine, orthopedics, and dermatology. So on the left, I have a few of the certificates that I earned. And through the online shadowing, I earned about 22 hours. So on the right, you have me taking notes furiously, trying to keep up with med students who have been doing this for years. So my first clinical case is the one that I did on the first day. I remember it very well. I was so excited. And so this was through the HEAL clinical course. And we have all of our vitals and demographics about our patient. She was a 63-year-old female with metastatic breast cancer who came in complaining of mild shortness of breath, a non-productive cough, chest pain, and left shoulder pain. which if you have lung and diaphragm issues that that lead to pain, it's connected to the phrenic nerve, which runs up the left shoulder, which can explain her the pain in the left shoulder. And with every online course that I had to do with every single case, they had differential diagnoses. So for this case, we had pleural effusion, pericardial effusion, myocardial infarction, which is just fancy talk for a heart attack. And the first thing that the doctor did was take an ultrasound, and here it is. Any black on an ultrasound is a sign of fluid. So as you can see in that red circle, this patient had a buildup of fluid in her pericardium. And now this is just a little infographic on how the surgeon did the procedure. He inserted a needle through a catheter, and then after removing the needle, drained out the fluid that was in the pleural space. So in my next slide, I have a picture of the procedure actually being performed. So if you don't like needles or little bits of blood, I would suggest just closing your eyes until I power through it. So on the top left, we have the ultrasound taking place, as we saw in the first few slides. And then on the right, we have the needle actually going in. And then on the bottom, we have the fluid coming out, being drained into this bag. And there was actually quite a bit of fluid in the patient. And I just remember being really excited about this case because it was the first time I'd actually seen a procedure done on a patient. So for all my squeamish people, we are done with all the needles and blood. And now we're on to the x-rays that were shown. One of the things that I really liked about the online clinical courses is that they made sure that you understood why you were doing certain things. So you had to drain it because it would put pressure on the chest. So as you can see in that little purple circle on the left, the pleural effusion also causes air bubbles, and it creates pressure, which can be really uncomfortable and painful, especially for older patients. So as you can see on the left, that's the x-ray before the thoracentesis, and on the right, it is the x-ray after the thoracentesis. And then, skipped a slide. This is my second clinical case. This is the one that I did in person while shadowing Dr. Hammersley at, while shadowing Dr. Hammersley at Maternal Fetal Medicine Associates of Maryland. And the case is a dichorionic diamniotic IVF twin. So patient medical history was a 36-year-old female, which is considered advanced maternal age. She presented at 12 weeks and 3 days and came in saying that her symptoms were throwing up, diarrhea, nausea, and her current medications were supposed to help with the nausea, but they hadn't really helped. And she also came in with a really high blood pressure, and she had a history of high blood pressure. So this was her ultrasound, and dichorionic means 2 placentas, and diamniotic means 2 amniotic sacs, which is the black circles around the babies in this ultrasound. And so one of the things that I had to do was work with the genetic counselor and this patient to see any sort of risk factors that we should keep an eye out for. And one important note is that the patient's mother suffered from preeclampsia while delivering the patient's older sister. And so combine this with the patient's extremely high blood pressure, and the doctors moved to prescribe her labetalol to lower her blood pressure, which in turn lowers her chances of preeclampsia. And then during my time at Dr. Hammersley's, I had to give a presentation on this case, and this was one of the graphics that I included, talking about how dizygotic and monozygotic twins, meaning one zygote, two zygote, can split up into different types of monochoriotic and monoamniotic, dichorionic, diamniotic twins. So in my time between doing online courses and going in person, I found that I should take the time to sort of enrich myself in ways that I would have been able to do if we were fully in person and I was able to help, and if I was able to help out on procedures. So one of the things I learned to do on my own was how to throw a stitch, which on the left, I am throwing a stitch on a banana, which was a challenge. And after about a week of practice, I sent it to my uncle, who's a retired doctor, and he told me that the banana is in fact going to make it. And on the right, these were medical terminology pamphlets that I picked up from Staples. And it really helped me when I had to be in person, because it helped me break up words that the doctors were using that I didn't originally know. So for example, one word that I knew before was thoracentesis. And if you take the root centesis, it means puncture or aeration of, which I didn't know until I had these packets. So thoracentesis, puncture aeration of the chest, thora being chest. And at the at Dr. Hammersley's, she specializes in high-risk pregnancies, which means that they need to perform amniocentesis, which amnio meaning amniotic sac, and centesis meaning draining of. So they need to kind of drain the amniotic sac. And I don't know, the medical terminology packet really made it more like a puzzle and made it a lot more fun. But that was my senior project, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I recommend, if you're going into medicine, to try and shadow a doctor or do the online shadowing, because I really had a great time with it and I really did learn a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, for a great presentation and all your hard work. This year, the alumni of the Academy played a very important role in being a sponsor around the DMV and across the country. A few wanted to share their thoughts with you today. Here you go.
Hi, I'm Maria Leonard Olson, class of 81, Holy Cross, and I have had a wonderful experience serving for the first time as a senior project coordinator, I guess one would say. I am an attorney, podcaster, radio show host, author, and have my finger in a lot of pots. But my intern, Kayla Conroy, was terrific. She was so good at so many different things and really helped me out with some great insights about my podcast, about my website and my social media. I may even start a TikTok account to promote my book because of Kayla's suggestion. She's definitely improved the questions that I had drafted to ask my podcast guests for my podcast called Becoming Your Best Version. I was, as a senior, put at the state attorney's office, I guess, and ultimately became a lawyer. So it was a good thing for me to have had that senior project. I'm so grateful to Holy Cross and all the goodness it brought into my life, the diversity of friendships and experiences. And I'm so happy to have been able to give back in this small way and to have benefited from the work of a very bright senior, Kayla Conroy. So thanks for asking, and I look forward to doing this again next year. Thanks.
Hi, Holy Cross seniors. This is Caitlin Yardley coming to you from my home office in Houston, Texas. I work for Schaefer Financial, which is a personal financial planning company. Happens to be my parents' company, so I am very invested in keeping the business going and bringing in some young, smart, fresh faces into the company and teaching you about financial planning and what that is. We've had many seniors over the years, and we're very excited that Holy Cross was able to continue the program and bring in another senior this year. We were able to have that senior attend meetings with our clients virtually, attend some webinars, and learn about financial planning virtually. And so we're really glad that this was able to happen even long distance as it was for us. So I wish you all lots of success. And I open the door if anybody wants to learn about financial planning and what it is that we do. I'd be happy to talk to any of you at any time. So good luck in the future, and talk to you soon. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Julie Kopp, and I'm a graduate of the class of 1989. I remember my senior project where I had the opportunity to work at NIMH. It had a profound impact on my education and career journey. I live in Boulder, Colorado, and have always wanted to find a way to support the senior project program at Holy Cross. I was thrilled this year to be able to support a student remotely, Claire Stocks. My company, CirrusMD, is a virtual care text-first platform that offers primary care and behavioral health services to many people across the country. Claire and I were able to put together a project where she could learn more about the virtual care industry, our company, and work on a behavioral health outcomes project that is very important to us. I was also really excited that she was able to meet some of the amazing women clinical leaders at CirrusMD. She was able to interview them and learn more about their journey in impacting clinical care in a virtual way. I hope Claire had as much fun as we did having her on our team for this short time, and I wish all the seniors much success and many blessings. Thank you.
In closing, there's very little that goes on at Holy Cross that does not involve a community. Such it is with the Senior Project. Thank you to all, the faculty and administration who answered the call to be a mentor and followed through with all their duties. The Development and Alumni Office offering their resources, staff members and friends who went out of their way to offer assistance, especially Mrs. Ruskowski and Mrs. Teeter, and a thank you to Mrs. May and Mr. Plasick for their technical assistance. It truly takes a village. Now, please sit back once again and take a few minutes to view the Class of 2021 Senior Project sites. Rising seniors, you just may find the place you will do your senior project next year. Thank you all for your time, and be safe.